It's 12 a.m., you're scrolling through YouTube or Twitter, and everything just hits you all at once. You're halfway through the semester and you haven't even started doing anything. Project deadlines are starting to come up, lectures are piling up, essays are due, homeworks are due, and you haven't done anything so far. It feels very overwhelming. It's paralyzing. You can't get yourself to start, and as a consequence, things are continuing to pile up, and you're very aware of the fact. You don't know how or where to start. I have good news for you. Most students have gone through this at some point and recovered. Hey everyone, I'm Khaled. I'm currently a third-year medical student studying at Al University, and I'm here to guide you through a comprehensive, step-by-step process in order to recover from when you've fallen far behind in your schoolwork. Over the past 3 years of medical school, I've had my own share of experiences and lows of falling very far behind, to the point where it felt extremely hopeless and it was too overwhelming. But thankfully, here I am. I've managed to recover, and this experience isn't limited to myself only. A lot of my friends and colleagues at university have experienced very similar things, and yet here they are, still thriving and going about their day. Believe me, this state of hopelessness is temporary. You can recover from it, and I'm here to facilitate that process in order to help you recover faster. This video consists of 5 main steps. Feel free to skip to any of them. I left some timestamps below, but I do want to preface things. I do recommend that you go through the video entirely from the beginning because it is a step-by-step process and it might make more sense that way. At the end of the video, I also provide some general tips in order to help you study and maybe stick to the step-by-step process. So without further ado, let's get started. The mental aspect of things. This is very, very important. In order for us to recover, we need to have the right mindset and approach. So the very first thing before I get started is to acknowledge that it's okay that I've fallen far behind. Maybe something happened in life that caused me or you to fall far behind. A situation. Life can be unpredictable. Or perhaps it could have been nothing. Maybe nothing happened in life and you were just procrastinating. Either way, I don't want you to beat up yourself over it. You're experiencing feelings of guilt and suffering and feeling overwhelmed already, so you don't want to pile up on top of that by beating yourself up over it and blaming yourself for falling far behind. Even if you did procrastinate, by the way, there might have been an underlying issue that caused you to procrastinate. Oftentimes when I do procrastinate myself, there is something insidious going on in my life that's impeding me from working, that's killing my motivation, that's killing my drive. And it's okay for all of that to happen. It's fine. So don't beat up yourself over it. It's not good for your mental health. You need to accept that these negative feelings and overwhelming emotions are part of life. You don't need to push back on them. You shouldn't tell yourself, oh, I shouldn't be feeling overwhelmed, or why am I feeling so crazy? That's not the right approach. You need to tell yourself, hey, it's fine. It's understandable that I've fallen far behind. It's okay to feel bad about it, it's okay to cry about it, and it's okay to feel these emotions. The reason they happen is because you care about your studying, you care about your semester, you care about your grades. And that's why you were feeling very overwhelmed and very scared and terrified, and it's okay to feel that. Now, instead of paralyzing yourself and fighting back these emotions and trying to suppress them, we need to take these emotions and try to channel them into something more positive, like the actual work itself. Here, I'm going to introduce a very, very important concept when it comes to the whole recovery plan thing. It's keeping things simple. This is gonna be the theme of the video. Keeping things simple. You're already overwhelmed by all these exhausting emotions and the multiple things that are going on, so you don't want to overcomplicate things. We want to keep things simple when we're trying to recover. This is the most important thing when we're trying to recover. Once you're okay with your emotions and you've accepted these negative feelings and you're comfortable living with them at least a little bit, we need to get you started on anything, but we need to keep it simple, as I mentioned. And that brings me to the second step of this recovery process, the extent of damage. So whenever I find myself falling far behind in university, I always find myself getting completely lost, and I almost find myself in denial. I can't understand the extent of damage or how many lectures have piled up. I tend to forget the exam dates. I tend to forget any of the project deadlines or any essays that are due. Subconsciously, I might be having an idea of when these things are about to happen, but it's almost like I'm in denial on when exactly it's going to happen. And so the first step we need to do is trying to assess how much damage has been done so far. It can feel very overwhelming and very daunting and scary and terrifying, which I understand. It's normal. So here's what I usually do and what I want you to do. I want you to sit down, open up your laptop, open up the material and everything that's listed in the entire semester and all the objectives, and I want you to just look at it. Nothing crazy, don't write down anything, don't do anything just yet. Just look at it assess the damage, see how many lectures you've fallen behind in, how many homeworks you need to submit, what's the upcoming project, etc. Once you do that, I'm sure you're not going to feel great. And that's fine. I want you to accept those emotions as well. To stick to the theme of the video, we want to keep things very, very simple when it comes to the approach. You're already feeling very overwhelmed by staring at all this material, so we want to tackle it extremely simply. And so that brings me to the third step, planning and prioritizing. All right, so we've seen the damage, we've assessed all the carnage and the destruction that's occurred over the past few weeks, and now it's time to set a plan and prioritize things. You can't just jump in like a headless chicken and start tackling the problem. It'll feel very overwhelming. Imagine yourself as a miner and then a boulder falls down and blocks the exit of the mine. All you have is a pickaxe and you're trying to dig your way out of it. You can't expect yourself to just do it all at once by jumping in without a plan. And so we need to make this plan based on you individually. I don't want you to follow an online plan. I don't want you to follow a specific number of lectures. I don't want you to do any of that. The first thing I want you to do is identify the number of hours or how much you can study effectively per day. It could be in number of hours, as I mentioned, or it could be number of lectures, whatever you feel like categorizing it as. But I want you to keep it very realistic. For me, for example, I can do about 3 hours of effective work, more or less. And if I'm feeling very, very stressed, I can do up to 5 or 6 hours. And this is the most realistic amount of studying I can do per day. For you, it might be different. For you, it might be 5 hours, 6 hours, 7, 8 hours, maybe an hour, maybe 2. Whatever it is, I want you to identify it. The reason we're doing this is because that's the amount of work you're going to be doing every single day. It doesn't make sense for us to cram so much work on multiple days because we've never done that at any point. And it's not realistic for you to do so much work when you can only do this amount of work every day on a realistic day, because your recovery plan isn't just for the next 4 or 5 days. No, I want it to be a very long-term process. So the next thing I want you to do is identify all the exam dates, all the project deadlines, and all the essay and homework deadlines, everything in there. Once you do that, you'll know which work is naturally more important and which is less important. Now, for actually writing down things on this plan, what I usually do is that I take the days of the week and just put a to-do list for every single day. But again, this is up to you. It's whatever way you schedule your work generally, just try to follow that. Very importantly though, when you're sitting down and writing down these objectives and these goals, I want you to keep things extremely specific, very targeted. I don't want you to write down on your paper, oh, study physics for 2 hours or study physiology for 3 hours. That doesn't make sense. The objectives should be more targeted, meaning, oh, study lesson 1, chapter 5. Work on the introduction portion of the project. When you write down very broad objectives and, for example, open up the physics book to study for 2 hours, you're still going to be deciding where to study and you're going to feel very overwhelmed and you don't know when to start. So you kind of want to limit your options here and just give yourself a very targeted plan in order for you to follow it very effectively. So naturally, when you're writing down these goals, you want to rank them by priority, obviously. The timing of the exam or deadline, the importance of the subject to you personally, and the importance of the topic within the subject. How important is this topic when it comes to the overall subject? For example, I was studying the digestive system and the gastrointestinal tract. So the most important topics I identified within that subject are inflammatory bowel disease, GERD, colon cancers. Naturally, you want to put all the important stuff at the very beginning and put the least important stuff at the very end. But I do want to preface things here. You do want to mix in some of those unimportant, low time consuming tasks with the high priority tasks. So your day would look like maybe 4 or 5 high priority tasks with maybe 2 low priority tasks, instead of like all of it being high priority tasks. The reason is I find myself not being able to study with the same intensity all throughout the day. I need these low priority tasks for the times of the day when I'm feeling very low energy. Now we gotta actually do the plan. This is the most important aspect of working. Action. The first thing is, how do we actually get ourselves started? It boils down to 2 things. The first is trying to ground those negative emotions that are in my head. And the second is a change of environment. Grounding myself meaning changing something about the way I'm thinking at the moment. I don't expect myself when I'm feeling very overwhelmed to just get up and start working right away. That's not how it works. I need to do something in order to bridge the process to work. What I found is doing something that's relaxing, that gets your mind off of these negative emotions. For me, it's working out. It helps me ground and reset everything in my head. Obviously, you don't have to follow what I do and work out. Some people people find working out a chore. For me, it's not a chore, it's something very therapeutic. For you, it might be something different, maybe painting, maybe drawing, maybe knitting, whatever it is that helps you relax in this way, given that it's not social media or any of the phone stuff that gets you addicted. Once I do that, usually the second thing I do in order to get myself to work is a change of environment. I try to distance myself from the place that gives me these overwhelming feelings. So this could be like campus or the library, and try to change it to something else. For example, a cafe, or maybe a different library, or even the house, or maybe a different room in the house, or maybe a different side of the table. Whatever it is, try to change something, because that sort of primes your brain into thinking, hey, this is different, so let's do something. It's extremely simple and it helps me out a lot, and this is what I always use whenever I'm falling very, very bad and unable to work at all. So once you've sat down, you've started, how much time are we going to spend on the lecture or the work? Here's where a trade-off usually happens with me. I need to think of quality and quantity. What it all boils down to is how much time am I willing to spend on this task? What I found extremely useful when I'm studying, regardless of when the exam date is, with the exception of the exam being the next day, the most effective way to work is to focus more on the quality end rather than the quantity end. If it were a scale, I would be somewhere over here on the quality side. The reason is you don't want to be a jack of all trades, master of none when you're going into an exam or a project. For example, if I have 10 lectures to study, given the amount of time I have, I can study 6 of them really, really well, or I can do all 10, but I have to split my attention through all of them. I would generally lean in towards studying 6 very well, and then at the end, I would do superficial studying for the rest of them. The reason is, when you know a topic very well, you guarantee yourself much higher chance of answering the questions right in the exam. Again, this is for you to decide, but I do recommend focusing more on your quality of work rather than the quantity of work. And finally, you're getting through the work. Should you track your progress? I personally tend to not track my progress because it can feel extremely overwhelming for me, and it sets me off because I feel very unsatisfied with the amount of work I do every single day, and it feels very negative. For someone else, it might feel very positive. Oh, look, hey, I'm following this plan and look at me, I'm getting work done. I don't tend to think like that, so I tend to avoid tracking the progress and having a general idea of how things are going without actually looking at how much is done. Now that we're in action, now we're on to the last very important step. Maintenance, recovery, breaks, and friends. What I found about me personally is that I can only do 2 hours of work, very focused work, at once. I cannot do more than 2 hours. Once I've realized that, I started setting breaks in between these 2 hours. For example, I would study 2 hours, take a break for an hour or two, and study another 2 hours, and do the exact same thing. But you might be thinking to yourself, hey, aren't we behind? Shouldn't we just try to power through the entire thing? That's not very healthy. You need time to recover from all of this focused work. When you are studying for extended periods of time, 5-6 hours, without taking a lot of breaks, you tend to just naturally take a break by slowing down. You'll feel guilty about it, and you'll feel that you're useless and that you're wasting your time and you haven't worked on anything. And all these negative emotions are building up inside of you because you're taking a break. If the break is gonna happen anyways, why not just set a time for it after you're feeling a little bit tired and feeling good about it, not feeling guilty about not working in it. That's very important. You should not be feeling guilty or mad or sad about not working during your break, but actually taking a break and getting your mind off of studying. You could strategically insert the methods I talked about earlier, like going and working out, doing something therapeutic by grounding yourself, and then changing your environment after the break in order to drive the work and continue working. I find myself doing a lot more work in less amount of time when I do these high focused sessions of studying and these high quality breaks in between, rather than doing an entire study session for the whole day. You need to remember to maintain this positive mindset. Continue to accept that these emotions are going to be there anyways, that you're going to feel bad because you've fallen behind, and it's okay. One way I found that it helps me a lot is to talk to friends about it, talk to family, talk to really anyone, because they help you process these emotions a lot better. Oftentimes I find that my friends have done flashcards or maybe tables that help me get through these lectures a lot faster than if I had just done the lecture on my own. Alright, finally, here are some tips that I have for you. Don't study every hour of the day to compensate for the work that's been missed over the entire semester. It's very mentally draining. It's very toxic to your head. It's only gonna make it very more daunting. And the next time you try to sit down and study, you're gonna feel extremely negative about it. When you start your work and try to sit down and study, start with the tasks that are low priority. I find myself starting a lot easier and getting into the flow of work by starting with these easy low priority tasks that finish in like 10-20 minutes and then hopping into the more focused work. Finding the underlying problem that led to this situation and trying to manage it for the future. If you've been procrastinating, for example, there must have been a reason why you were procrastinating. You're not a lazy person. There's no such thing as you being lazy. That's why you procrastinated. That's a false idea. There might have been something that's in the background that's stressing you out, that's causing you to feel very demotivated. Try to find the underlying problem in order to future-proof yourself from falling behind this much. Here's an example from medicine. Liver cancer usually arises because of a background problem that's happening in your liver. For example, liver cirrhosis. Liver cirrhosis could happen because of overconsumption of alcohol by an alcoholic. So the underlying problem would be alcohol itself. That's causing this damage to the liver, which may have led to this liver cancer. In the same way, your procrastination and you falling behind might have been because of a background problem that you're not aware of at the moment. Once you identify it and try to solve it, you can prevent yourself from falling this far behind. If, for example, one day you couldn't achieve your tasks or goals, it's okay. You don't have to beat up yourself over it. You don't have to follow the actual plan to the letter. Life happens. Sometimes a family member needs help. Sometimes a friend needs help and you need to be there, and it's okay. The most important thing is that you always try to do something and recover the next day rather than letting yourself get overwhelmed and fall and spiral out of control. So that brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I laid a framework for you in order to follow. I hope I made things extremely simple. And if you still have any questions, please leave a comment down below. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video. If you have any suggestions for a future video I might make, please do leave them down below as well. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.